The illusion of control. You wake up, check your phone, glance at the news, and already before your feet touch the ground, your mind is pulling at strings it cannot hold. The weather report frustrates you. A delayed email reply unsettles you. The stock market dips, and a vague worry lingers. Without realizing it, you're reaching out to grasp the reins of things, far beyond your reach. It's a familiar pattern, isn't it? The Stoics called this the illusion of control, the false sense that if you just plan better, work harder, or anticipate enough, you can master every outcome, steer every person, and avoid every failure. But life doesn't follow our plans. It unfolds often and differently, in its own way. Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." You begin to understand what he meant, not as fatalism, but as clarity. There's only so much you can shape. The rain will fall, people will disappoint, outcomes will stray from intentions. Trying to command all of this, it's like yelling at the ocean to calm down. And yet we spend so much of our lives trapped in that cycle, fighting traffic, resenting co-workers, fearing what hasn't even happened. You start to see the cost of that illusion: emotional exhaustion, sleepless worry, resentment at the world for being what it is. What if, instead of tightening your grip on everything external, you loosened it just slightly? Not to give up, but to redirect your energy. Consider a surfer. They don't curse the wave. They don't demand the sea calm itself. They study its motion, position themselves carefully, and then ride, not by force, but by flow. So you ask, where am I gripping too tightly? What waves am I trying to stop? Instead of learning to ride, in this first quiet realization, you take a breath. You're not here to control the weather, the traffic, or other people's opinions. You're here to master something else entirely, and that shift in focus changes everything. The mind as your only domain. You pause now, perhaps with a hand resting gently against your chest, and you feel it, that quiet space inside you, the place no one else can enter. No matter what the world throws your way, that inner landscape remains your own. This is where the Stoics begin and end, not with politics, fortune, or fame, but with the mind, your only true domain. Epictetus taught this with unwavering clarity. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. He was a former slave, a man whose body had once been broken, whose life was not his own by law. Yet he held a powerful truth that while others could command his circumstances, his mind belonged only to him. What is up to you? Your beliefs, your values, your reactions, your choices, everything else, the weather, your body, other people's actions, is outside your rule. That doesn't mean those outer things don't matter. Of course they do, but they're not yours to control. Only yours to meet with grace, understanding, and wisdom. Imagine your mind as a garden. If you're constantly trying to tend the sky, the wind, the insects in someone else's plot, your own weeds will grow wild. But if you turn inward and carefully tend your soil, pulling thoughts that don't serve you, watering the values you wish to live by, you find something astonishing: peace. This peace doesn't come from pretending bad things don't happen. It comes from remembering where your true power lives. When your thoughts are clear and your values strong, the outer world may shift, even collapse, but you will remain steady. It's tempting in today's culture to believe power lies in influence. How many followers you have, how many people agree with you, how much impact you make out there. But the Stoics teach a subtler truth, that the deepest power is inner. It's how you meet yourself in the quiet moments, how you speak to your own soul when no one is watching. So you ask, am I focusing on what is truly mine, or exhausting myself over things I never owned? The moment you reclaim your mind, you are no longer a leaf in the wind. You are the tree rooted deeply, bending, but never breaking. This isn't escapism, it's the beginning of sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius and the inner citadel. Now, you turn inward even more, stepping into the quiet mind of an emperor, Marcus Aurelius, ruler of Rome, commander of armies, philosopher, king. He could have written decrees, speeches, histories, but instead, he wrote to himself. In the privacy of his journal, what we now call meditations, he reminded himself of a truth you too are beginning to feel, that all external power is fleeting, but the power over your own mind, that is eternal. He called it the inner citadel, a fortress within that no grief, insult, or failure could penetrate. Unless you let it, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, he wrote. In other words, the world doesn't disturb you. You disturb yourself by how you choose to interpret it, and yet this doesn't make you cold or distant, quite the opposite. Imagine walking through the chaos of life. A crowded street, a heated argument, a moment of deep uncertainty, but inside there is stillness, a clarity that whispers, you are not this noise, you are not these reactions, you are the one who observes. That is the citadel Marcus built every day, not of stone or steel, but of disciplined thought. He woke to responsibility and weight few of us can imagine, but he reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Can you imagine being the most powerful man in the world and still needing to write that down for yourself? This is not weakness, this is wisdom. The mind left unattended wanders, but the mind trained and fortified becomes a home that holds you upright no matter the storm. Think of a candle in a windless room. The flame burns softly, steadily. Now place it outside in a gust and watch it flicker. The wind isn't evil, it simply is. But if you try to live exposed, without sheltering your thoughts, your clarity won't last long. So you ask, what is the condition of my inner citadel? Am I building it, guarding it, respecting it? Because when you understand what Marcus did, that nothing outside can truly harm what is right within, you don't need a throne, you just need presence and discipline and care. Then, no matter where you are in power, in pain, in the unknown, you walk with the quiet strength of someone who governs the only empire that truly matters. Epictetus and the two-handed rule now. The lesson sharpens like the edge of a well-honed tool. You find yourself sitting, perhaps in a quiet room, or walking beneath trees, and you hear a voice, not commanding, but precise. It belongs to Epictetus. He didn't speak in riddles, he spoke plainly, directly. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. At first glance, it sounds simple, even obvious, but as you live with it, you realize how often you've reversed it, how often you've tried to control what's not up to you. Other people's opinions, outcomes, the past, and how often you've neglected what is yours, your thoughts, your reactions, your principles. This is the Stoic split. The two-handed rule in one hand, you hold only what is truly yours. In the other, you let go of what isn't. Discipline with one hand, surrender with the other. It's not a passive surrender. You still show up, speak clearly, love deeply, and work diligently, but you don't cling. You don't let your peace be hostage to what you can't command. Picture it like sailing the winds, not up to you, but the sail you raise, the angle you steer, the choice to keep going or to pause. That's yours. The wise sailor doesn't curse the wind. They read it. They adapt. Epictetus, a man born into slavery, could not choose the body he lived in, the station he was born into, or the misfortunes that came his way. But he claimed full authority over his mind, and that made him free, long before any master ever let go of his chains. So you pause and ask, what burdens am I carrying in the wrong hand? What if I released them, not with anger or defeat, But with clarity, you might feel a lightness already, a quiet exhale, because when you begin to carry only what's truly yours, life doesn't feel so heavy. You start to see that the core of Stoicism isn't coldness or detachment. It's precision, a sharp knowing of where your influence ends and where trust must begin. And from that place, you begin to walk differently, more rooted, less reactive. You don't need to control the whole world. You just need to master the hand that's yours. Emotions are not the enemy. You feel something rise, perhaps a pang of anger, a wave of sadness, a flicker of fear, and for a moment, you resist it. You try to suppress, to control, to conquer. That's the instinct, isn't it? To push emotions away, to see them as weaknesses or flaws. But the Stoics never asked you to be made of stone. They didn't deny feeling. They asked only this: don't let emotion rule your mind. There's a difference between feeling and being ruled by a feeling. One passes through like a breeze. The other builds a storm that lingers. Seneca, the most psychologically insightful of the Stoics, put it clearly: we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So what do? With your fear, your anger, your disappointment, you acknowledge it, you trace it to its root, you give it a name, and then you choose your response. Imagine standing at the shore as a tide comes in. You don't command the ocean, but you don't drown either. You notice the rising water, you step back, or build a channel. You observe, you respond. That's how emotions work. They arrive uninvited, but how long they stay and what they build inside you is up to you. Modern life tells you to control your emotions as if you could lock them in a box. Stoicism teaches something wiser: to befriend your emotions. Like wild horses, you don't let them run the show, but you also don't pretend they don't exist. You recognize anger as a signal perhaps of crossed values, fear as a signal of uncertainty or risk, envy as a misunderstanding of your own worth. These emotions are not curses, they're clues, messengers, and handled well, they're gateways to insight. So you ask, what emotion am I resisting right now, and what might it be trying to teach me? This is where the Stoic becomes deeply human. You aren't expected to live without sadness, fear, or frustration. You're asked only not to worship them, not to obey them, not to hand over the keys to your soul. Just because a storm has gathered outside, you are the lighthouse, not the storm. You illuminate, you remain grounded, and you help others see through the fog, not because you never feel, but because you have learned to feel with wisdom. Modern chaos, ancient calm. You look around today's world, and it's loud, not always in volume, but in urgency, in distraction, in demands. Notifications blink, headlines scream, calendars overflow. Everyone seems to be in a rush towards something, though most aren't quite sure what. And in the middle of that whirlwind, you pause. You ask, is this really how life must be lived? The Stoics, though separated by centuries, faced their own chaos, plagues, wars, political betrayals. Marcus Aurelius ruled during a time of constant crisis, yet his writings are remarkably still. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul, he wrote. He was reminding himself, just as you might remind yourself now, that calm is not found out there, it's built in here. In modern terms, think of your mind like a phone screen with too many tabs open. Each one demands attention, each one drains your battery. Eventually, the device slows or crashes. The solution isn't more energy, it's closing the tabs. Stoicism helps you do that. It gently nudges you to turn off the noise and turn inward, not to withdraw from life, but to live it more clearly. You start to see how much of your mental clutter comes from things you cannot control. Opinions online, trends, gossip, the fear of missing out. And you remember Epictetus, It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Imagine a clear lake. Now picture tossing pebble after pebble into it. Each one a worry, a comparison, a digital echo. The water distorts. You can't see the bottom, but when the pebbles stop, the ripples fade, the reflection returns. So you ask, what pebbles am I tossing today? And what if I simply stopped? This isn't a call to abandon technology, ambition, or connection. It's a call to intentionality, to create windows of quiet in your day, a walk without your phone, a meal without multitasking, a moment to just breathe, and notice where your thoughts are pointing you. Because in a chaotic world, calm is rebellion. Stillness is not escape, it's resistance to being pulled in 1,000 directions. And when you practice this kind of stillness, rooted in ancient wisdom, you become something rare, a clear-minded human in a fog-filled world. And that clarity, that's not just for you. It radiates outward. You don't have to leave the modern world. You simply bring an older calm into it. Respond, don't react. Something happens. An email arrives. A comment stings. A plan unravels. And before you even think, you're swept into reaction. It happens so fast, doesn't it? The heart races, the breath shortens, and words spill out that you later wish had stayed inside. But then, you pause. You breathe. You remember. The Stoic way. This is the space between impulse and action. And in that space, you begin to regain your freedom. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. That's not a condemnation, it's a revelation. It means the trigger is out there, yes, but the flame that's in you, and if it's yours, then so is the power to temper it. You realize something profound. Most of your suffering doesn't come from the event, it comes from the story you tell about it. The mental habit of jumping to conclusions, taking offense, rushing to retaliate. But you're not a puppet pulled by invisible strings. You're a person capable of choosing your next move. Think of a match. Strike it quickly, and it flares, then vanishes. But leave it untouched, and it stays inert. Just potential. In every moment you hold that match, and in every moment you choose whether to ignite or observe. The Stoics weren't saints. They felt irritation, heartbreak, fear. But they practiced the art of delayed judgment. When something stirred them, they didn't respond immediately. They gave it space. They asked, is this worth my peace? Is this under my control? What would a wise person do here? This is how you move from reacting to responding. Reacting is reflexive. Responding is reflective. Reacting is about the past, your habits, your wounds, your conditioning. Responding is about the present, your clarity, your choices, your growth. So you ask, what kind of person do I want to be? In the moment of challenge, the answer won't always come easily. Sometimes you'll catch yourself after the reaction, not before, and that's okay. Awareness is a muscle. Each time you notice, you strengthen it. You begin to see that the Stoic practice of control doesn't mean repressing or pretending. It means pausing long enough to meet the moment with intention, to speak not just because you're hurt, but because you've understood, to act not from panic, but from presence. In that pause, in that breath, there is all the power you'll ever need. Letting go of outcomes. You try, you show up, you put your heart into the work, the conversation, the effort. But then something you can't control takes over. The deal falls through, the person doesn't respond, the goal slips out of reach, and a familiar feeling creeps in: disappointment, frustration, maybe even despair. But now, you pause. You remember what the Stoics taught. You're responsible for the effort, not the result. This truth feels strange at first. We're raised in a world that measures success by outcomes, grades, followers, promotions, applause. But the Stoics point you toward something different, something steadier. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not think that what is hard for you to master is humanly impossible, but if it is humanly possible, consider it within your reach." That's the Stoic posture. Act fully, then release. You plant the seed. You water it. You do your part. But you don't demand the harvest to come exactly when or how you want it. You let go, not because you don't care, but because you understand your role in the dance of life. Think of an archer. You pull the bowstring with care. You aim with steady focus. But once the arrow leaves your hands, it's no longer yours. The wind may change. The target may move. You don't control the outcome. You control the aim. That's you too. In relationships, in work, in creativity. You aim with virtue, clarity, and intention. Then you let go. This isn't apathy, it's freedom. Because if your peace is tied to every result, you'll be on a roller coaster forever, rising with every win, crashing with every loss. But if your peace comes from knowing you did your best, then you're steady, no matter where the arrow lands. So you ask, where in my life am I gripping the outcome too tightly? And what would it feel like to release it? Maybe it's a project. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's an expectation you've carried too long. The Stoics invite you to shift from outcome attachment to effort alignment. You begin to judge your days, not by what happened to you, but by how you showed up. How patiently you listened, how truthfully you spoke, how courageously you acted. This is not easy. It's not natural at first, but it is powerful. And the more you practice it, the more peaceful you become, because you are no longer chasing the wind. You are tending your garden, knowing the harvest is not always yours to decide, but the planting always is. Stillness as a daily discipline. You wake up, and the day is already rushing toward you. Notifications light up your screen. Deadlines knock on your door. Your mind leaps ahead. What needs doing? Who needs calling? What's waiting to go wrong? But what if before the world rushes in, you return to stillness? The Stoics practiced stillness, not as withdrawal, but as preparation. It was their way of clarifying the noise, distilling the essential, and stepping into life with purpose rather than panic. Marcus Aurelius described it as an untroubled mind, undisturbed by passions, not numb, not distant, just clear. Stillness doesn't require silence. It requires attention. It's not about escaping the world, it's about seeing it without distortion. Picture a glass of muddy water. Shake it and everything swirls. Let it sit and clarity returns. Your mind is the same. When constantly stirred by distraction, worry, and noise, it cannot reflect truthfully. But in stillness, brief, intentional, practiced, your vision sharpens. This isn't about carving hours you don't have. It's about finding moments. A pause before a reply, a breath before a decision, a quiet walk. Without your phone, in those moments, you are not rushing toward life. You are meeting it. Stillness doesn't mean inaction. In fact, it's the soil from which meaningful action grows. A Stoic acts from stillness, not instead of it. Think of an archer again, not in the release this time, but in the pause before the shot, the breath drawn, the tension held, the clarity of aim. Without that pause, the arrow flies wild. With it, the arrow finds purpose. You don't need to run from life to find peace. You simply need to stop fleeing yourself. So you ask, when in my day can I return to stillness, not as luxury, but as necessity? It could be 5 minutes with your coffee, a walk between meetings, a journal entry at night. The point isn't how long, it's how present. Stillness is the reset button of the soul, the space where your values come back into focus. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." You begin to see that stillness helps you waste less. not by doing more, but by choosing better. You're not racing the clock anymore. You're standing in the center of your own life, watching time unfold and stepping forward deliberately. Because from stillness, everything moves differently, not slower, just truer. Becoming a steward of your mind. You've come far now through noise and emotion, outcomes and effort, anger and stillness. And here, at the quiet edge of this reflection, one truth remains. You are the steward of your mind. That's the core of Stoicism, not detachment from life, but devotion to tending the only thing that is truly, irrevocably yours. Your mind is not a battlefield to conquer. It's a garden to tend. Some days it blooms with clarity and compassion. Other days, weeds of doubt, fear, or resentment creep in. But every day it's yours to care for. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and so do you. The thoughts you choose, whether nourished or neglected, become the filter through which you see everything: relationships, work, beauty, loss, even yourself. Being a steward means showing up patiently, daily, without needing immediate rewards. You don't wait for perfect motivation. You tend to your thoughts because they shape the kind of person you are becoming. You realize now that no one else can do this work for you. Others can inspire you, challenge you, support you, but no one can step inside your mind and sweep the dust for you. That task is sacred, and it is yours. Think of a lighthouse keeper. They may seem isolated, but they're not idle. They tend the light, clean the glass, make small repairs. The light doesn't always shine for themselves, but it matters, especially in storms. The same goes for your inner clarity. You may not notice it every day, but when the storm comes, it makes all the difference. So you ask, what am I allowing to take root in my thoughts? What am I cultivating, and what needs to be cleared? The work is never finished, and that's the beauty of it. Every morning offers a new beginning, every evening a quiet review. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be willing to return, to reflect, to choose again. Because when you live this way, not as a controller of outcomes, not as a suppressor of feelings, but as a conscious guardian of your inner world, you become a kind of philosopher in action. You live with purpose, with presence, with peace, and you finally understand you control nothing but your mind, and truly, that is more than enough. Living the Stoic way, one thought at a time. You reach the end of this journey not with answers tied in perfect knots, but with a deeper stillness, a sense that you've remembered something you already knew, that the world is too vast to control, that people will be as they are, that outcomes come and go like tides, but within you there is a space, a center, a flame that never flickers unless you let it. The Stoics never promised an easy life, but they did promise a clear path, a way of meeting the world that is both honest and courageous. They asked only this: tend to the one place where your freedom lives, your own mind. In a noisy world, you become quiet in a reactive culture. You become deliberate in uncertain times. You become steady not because nothing moves you, but because you know where you stand. And that begins not tomorrow, but now, with a single breath, a single thought, a single choice. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. So step forward gently, with clarity and compassion. You don't need to control the world. You only need to care for the mind that meets it, and that truly is enough.